U.S. beer sales traditionally peak in the summer months between Memorial Day and Labor Day, but what's in those beers is changing. While non-alcoholic beer, wine, and cocktails make up a small fraction of the overall alcohol market, sales are rapidly rising. We sent Paul Salmon out for a taste test.
In New Haven, Connecticut, paying homage to the Hemingway Daiquiri,
with grapefruit and maraschino liqueur.
a Caribbean-style gin buck,
Usually gin, lime juice, and ginger beer.
a tiki punch,
I base it off of this honeybush and banana tea.
Oh, that's delicious.
These are all concoctions of award-winning bartender, restaurant consultant, and writer Khalid Williams. Cocktails with barely a trace of alcohol.
My goal is to give you a drink that has like a wine, a beginning, a kind of mid-palate, and a finish.
Any drink, like these spirits Williams uses, can be labeled non-alcoholic if they have no more than 0.5% of alcohol. And these so-called sober cocktails, he says, are all the rage.
Any bar now worth their salt is giving attention, menu real estate, and I would say honor to cocktails that do not have alcoholic content.
Of course, old-timers like Kevin Nesbitt, who asked if the bar at which he drank martinis 30-some years ago was open at 10 a.m.,
Never thought about ordering a non-alcoholic martini, to be honest.
but more and more of us, and particularly younger people, are opting to cut back on booze. Sales of so-called non-alcoholic spirits, beer, and wine at grocery, convenience, liquor stores, and the like are up more than 40% in just the last 2 years. There are even bars like Hecket in Manhattan's East Village, which displays, says New Yorker writer John Seabrook,
All these bottles of liquor that look like rum and whiskey and tequila, and they're all non-alcoholic.
Indeed, it's not just the 1 in 4 Americans who don't drink at all, says analyst Kaylee Theriault.
What we see in our data is that 4 in 5 consumers of non-alcohol beer, wine, and spirits are also purchasing alcohol-containing beer, wine, and spirits.
No surprise that the main adult non-alcoholic beverage, again 0.5% of alcohol or less, is beer. One brewer of it, Athletic, in Milford, Connecticut, growing like crazy.
In 2018, we had brewed 800 barrels of beer, and last year we produced over 170,000 barrels of beer. The non-alcoholic beer category itself is growing 30% year over year. We're growing at about 90% year over year to date.
In fact, last year, Athletic had to move to this 150,000 square foot facility after reinforcing part of the floor to support new tanks that hold up to 25,000 gallons for brewing in the boilers, pasteurizing to counter microbes that alcohol would otherwise slay, and packaging at a breakneck pace.
This new canning line right here can do 450 cans a minute.
Brewer John Walker migrated from the alcohol-dependent craft beer industry because of a void.
Nobody had really innovated in non-alcoholic beer for decades.
The innovation, killing the alcohol without killing the taste, found a fast-growing and loyal fan base.
Wow, here's a non-alcoholic IPA.
John Seabrook wrote about his discovery after swearing off alcohol 7 years ago. Were you a problem drinker? Is that it?
Yeah, I was, let's say I got a credible ultimatum from my wife. And when you stop drinking alcohol, you really do need to find something to hold in your hand.
Which led him to super low alcohol beers, but
They were like made in America versions of European beers like Klosthaler.
until he tried Athletic, which I figured I should try as well.
Okay, well, that's the yellow one. That's okay, too. Well, but when you get there tomorrow, definitely get the blue one.
Which, in the interests of investigative journalism, I did the next day at Athletic.
So we've got some tropical notes, citrus notes.
Nuances mostly lost on my peasant palate. Well, it's nice and cool. It's refreshing. But the key to Athletic and sober beer's success in general was hard to miss. They're better for you.
Beautiful day, huh?
So healthy that the German Olympic ski team trains on non-alcoholic beer. Maybe because it's also low-cal.
This is our 25 calorie, 5 grams of carb, and 0 sugar light beer.
Because there's next to no alcohol. That's why it's Athletic.
A lot of what we did early on was break non-alcoholic beer out of the penalty box.
Bartender Khalid Williams says he too is trying to remove the sometimes negative aura around the sober drink.
It just was not respected, whether it was somebody with child or somebody on a diet. The table would laugh.
Really? I mean, you
For
saw
sure,
that?
many times.
So he's reframing booze-free.
I'm kind of a one-man movement to stop using the word virgin to describe beverages.
So how about mocktail?
I've been kind of thinking past mocktail. How do we get to the point where we're not deleting something, where we're not taking something away, we're making something complete?
Right, so that it has its own standing and no stigma.
Bingo, no stigma.
No stigma for the 1/3 of Americans aiming to drink less alcohol, either to cut calories and/or intoxication. And for John Seabrook, athletic with so little alcohol, helped him off anything stronger.
I needed a sort of a substitute beverage that wasn't alcohol, but tasted enough like alcohol that I felt at part of the ritual.
But for some, drinking anything like or even just a little alcohol can be a problem, says Yale psychologist and neuroscientist Regina Sinha.
Recovery is different for different people. Drinking drinks that look like an alcoholic drink can be a trigger. It can be what we call cue-inducing.
And notes the World Health Organization, quote, there is no safe amount that does not affect health.
The short-term effects are sleep, attention and focus, emotional reactivity.
But I'm not alone in drinking alcohol to chill out, right?
Yes, it does seem to decrease anxiety in the moment as you're drinking. For some people, it makes them more social. But very quickly, you get tolerant to the anxiety effects. And the more you drink, the more anxiety-provoking alcohol can be. So the more distressing it can be.
So I'm 78. Should I not be drinking any alcohol at all?
At your age, not a good idea to continue.
Do you drink at all?
I do. Anywhere between 2 or 3 drinks a week. But I have been actually thinking maybe I need to even cut that back.
And after hearing all that, plus a day of cocktails and beer with no after effects at all, I'm on the wagon. For now. And for the PBS NewsHour in Milford, Connecticut, Paul Salman.